You know, it's in times like these you miss the finer things in life, like trying to get your hair cut and whatnot. But that's not going to stop me from teaching you 7.5 on factoring. So why don't you guys get out your notes and open up to 7.5. Okay, it's entitled Factoring. All right, and then it gives you this weird looking thing that says x squared plus bx plus c. All right, and this thing over here is a quadratic. And basically what we're going to try and do is break things apart that look like that. And what do I mean by break it apart? Like, if I say, give me all the factors of 12, you'd say like 1 and 12 are factors, 2 and 6 are factors, 3 and 4 are factors. Those are all the factors. And things like this are able to be factored, all right, for the most part. Some aren't, but we'll get there, and we'll talk about that. But let's look at our first one. It says, example 1. And it says x squared plus 10x plus 16. So there's a trick to factoring these, right? And it's all about this number here and this number here. But this one's really important. This one's the one I'm after, okay? This is the one I want to pay attention to, okay? So let's look at 16. Can you guys give me all the factors of 16? Melanie, what do you got? Very good. 1 and 16. That was nice and easy. Riley, what do you got? 2 and 8. Perfect. And Peter. What's the last one here? Yes, 4 and 4. So these are all the factors I got. Let me adjust that so you can see it a little better. So those are all my factors. Now I said this one's really important. And I also said this one's important, okay? So we start out with taking all the factors of 16, but now we want to find out which factors of 16 add up to 10, okay? So what I'm going to do, and what I like to do, is I like to put a little plus sign here. So 1 plus 16 is 17, 2 plus 8 is 10, and 4 plus 4 is 8. So which of these pairs of numbers add up to 10? What do you got, Leah? Very good. 2 and 8. So my answer to how do I factor x squared plus 10x plus 16 is, well, I have my two factors here. All right, and I'm going to have x plus 2 and x plus 8. Now, the order of the 2 and 8 doesn't really matter, okay? I could put the 8 here and the 2 here, not a big deal, okay? I typically write it, how I wrote it here, all right? So why is it x and x? Well, x times x is x squared, and 2 times 8 is 16. But where does this come into play? So let me show you. So I showed you all that work in order to find my answer, but here's why it works. Right? Now, we talked about how to multiply two polynomials through FOIL earlier on in this chapter. So let's FOIL this to check our answer. X times x is x squared. X times 8 is 8x. 2 times x is 2x. And 2 times 8 is 16. Combine those two. So we have x squared plus 10x plus 16. See, that's where we started. So there we go. That's how to factor. So let's fill in our little note section there. All right, it says factoring x squared plus bx plus c. All right. And in there, it says, oh, don't mind my daughter. She's just a little fussy right now. She's in the background. We got her, taking care of her. All right. So we got x squared plus bx plus c equals x plus, they like to say p, and times x plus q. All right. So b equals p plus q. And c equals p times q. That's what goes in your blanks right there. So why don't you fill that in? And I wouldn't worry too much about those p's and q's, b's and c's. I would just worry about the process like what we did in number 1. Finding the factors of this last number that add up to the middle number. That's what's going on here. All right. So in the example they give you in that box, we have x squared plus 6x plus 5. So I'm looking for the factors of 5 that add up to 6. So what are my factors of 5? 1 and 5. Is there any others? What do you got, Shane? No, of course there's not. 5's prime, so it's just 1 and 5. So does 1 plus 5 equal 6? The answer is yes. So I factor this polynomial by breaking it apart as x plus 1 times x plus 5. And I can check my answer. Does 1 times 5 give me 5? And does 1 plus 5 give me 6? And the answer is yes. All right. So below that, there are 2 checkpoints that I want you to do, 1 and 2. See if you can do that real quick. Okay. I'm going to erase real slow so you don't have to pause the video. I wasn't kidding. All right, here you go. So the first one was x squared plus 7x plus 12. So what are the factors of 12 that add up to 7? So I'm going to write my factors off to the side of 12, 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. I like to start with my small numbers like 1 and 12, 2 and 6. I go in sequential order here. And now I'm going to add, see which ones add up to give me 7, 3 and 4. So my answer is x plus 3 times x plus 4. Easy enough. All right. And the next one, we have x squared plus 9x plus 8. We're looking for the factors of 8 that add up to 9, so write 8 off to the side, 1 and 8, 2 and 4. All right, that's it. So I'm going to add these two. So here we go, 1 and 8, that's 9, 2 and 4, that's 6. That's the one I want. So my answer is x plus 1 times x plus 8. Okay? There we go. So now that we've gotten into this a little bit, I want to talk about some patterns that we might see. Now, I wrote these at the top of this page 7.5 before I moved on to example 2. So if you want to write down the patterns, there are things to look for, things to make your life just a little bit easier, okay? So there are 4 patterns, okay? Bear with me, don't worry about the B's and C's and whatnot. We're really worried about the signs here. So when something's in this format, where we have a plus and a plus, that's what I'm worried about, the 2 pluses here. That's going to factor, if it does, to x plus some number, okay? You guys know that it's hashtag. I know this is the number sign, all right? Times x plus some number. All right? Notice this factors, if it's plus plus, it factors to plus plus. It's easy. Now, is it always going to be plus plus? No, absolutely not. So the next one I like to do is x squared minus bx plus c. Well, notice here this is minus and a plus. The pattern here is that it's going to factor to x minus a number times x minus a number. Okay? Minus plus factors to minus minus. Why? Well, let's go back up here to the first one. A positive times a positive is a positive, and a positive plus a positive is a positive. So there we go with that. Now, let's talk about this. Well, this one is representative of the numbers when they're multiplied. So up here, multiplying a positive and positive gives you a positive. But if you multiply a negative and negative, you could also get a positive. But a negative plus a negative adds up to a negative. So plus plus gives you plus plus. Minus plus gives you minus minus. Okay? So if this last term is positive, the signs are going to be the same. That's something you can look for. Now the other patterns, I like to talk about them at the same time. They're a little trickier. Okay? So I feel it's very important to go over these patterns because it helps you. Later on, it's going to help you. You're going to be able to look for these things and kind of move on. Ooh, let's use blue. So I have x squared plus bx minus c. And then I have x squared minus bx minus c. Now, the reason why I do these together is because notice this last term is negative. Well, they actually factor to x plus a number and x minus a number for both. And I'll talk about why they're slightly different. Well, their minus, all right, here means that this times this must be negative. So the only way to get that is to have a positive times a negative. But now this comes into play. Okay? Now, why does this affect it over here? Well, if this is positive, that means this number is the bigger of the two numbers. So this is a number and that's a number. And this number is going to be bigger than that number because this needs to be positive. Here, well, that's going to be the bigger number. Why? Because when I add the two, all right, I better get a positive and a negative. So look here, positive times a negative is a negative, okay? Positive, big positive, plus a smaller negative is a positive. Here, positive times a negative is a negative. Positive plus a bigger negative, well, that's a negative. So that's the pattern. Now let's use that to kind of help us. Now I'm just going to go over, I'm not going to do all of these just because, one, I feel this video is getting too long. It's like 15 minutes already. And I know you guys are getting tired of, staring at my amazing locks right now, or as I believe you guys would call it, my lettuce. I believe that's the proper term these days. Okay? Trying to stay up on things by watching TikTok every day. So let's look at this one. This is example 2. So what are my factors of 6? Ooh, got locked out of the computer. All right, let's address that issue first. So what are my factors of 6 that add up to -5? Okay, well, first let's talk about what are my factors of 6. Okay, we have 1 and 6, 2 and 3, all right? But now here, if I use my patterns that we just talked about, a negative and a positive factor to a negative and a negative. All right, so when I'm looking at these, which ones combine to give me 5? That's going to give me an idea of where to go. Well, this gives me a 7, and this gives me +5, but remember I wanted -5. So this comes down to my factors here, okay? These, because it factored to a negative and a negative, these had to be negative and negative, and that's where this comes from. 2 and 3, okay? So I like to use my patterns. I'll show you how to do it, number 3, without patterns. Okay, it's a little bit more work. The patterns lead me all along the right path and kind of tell me where to go and where to look. All right, but ultimately I have to know that sometimes my factors can be positive and negative. So let's look at number 3. Number 3 was x squared minus 8x plus 15. All right, without patterns, I know that this is a positive number and I have a negative sign here. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to talk about, well, a negative times a negative is going to give me a positive, but when I add them, it's going to give me a negative. So -1, -15, -3, and -5, and that's it. So now when I add them, okay, here I get -16, and here I get -8. Well, -8 is the one I'm looking for, so I have x minus 3 and x minus 5. Okay? So both lead you along the right path. I like the patterns better. They just kind of view it as fill in the blank. Okay, so there's one more checkpoint there. I'm not going to do it. You guys can check my notes, okay, to see if you got it right or wrong, or if you need more help. If you need more help, reach out to your teacher, reach out to me, whoever, it doesn't matter to me, okay? Example 3. Example 3, this one's a fun one, okay? So we have x squared plus 3x minus 10. Now, the way to get a negative number at the end was, remember, one number had to be positive, one number had to be negative. So I'm doing my factor list here, okay? I need to pay attention. I'm looking for -10, okay? So here we go, -1 and 10. And now I have to talk about, well, maybe the 1's positive and the 10 is negative. So it's 1 and -10. Well, what about 2? Could be -2 and 5, or it could be 2 and -5. Now I want to find which pair of factors add up to +3. Well, that one adds up to 9. That one's -9. This is 3, and this is -3. So I want this one. So it's going to be x minus 2 times x plus 5. There we go. Okay. Now, let me show you how to do it using the patterns like I did. Okay, so this was more along the lines of just write out the factors of -10. So let's talk about the patterns and all that fun stuff. Okay? So listen to the words they say, listen to the questions I ask myself, and hopefully they help you out. All right, number 5 in the checkpoint. Okay, I have x squared plus 5x minus 14. I know a positive and a negative factors to a plus and a minus. So now I just have to find what numbers go here. I know because this is positive that my bigger number needs to be with the positive sign. So I'm going to look at 14. I'm thinking of all my factors of 14, 1 and 14, 2 and 7, all that fun stuff. Now I'm thinking, which of these factors can give me 5? Harry, what do you got? There you go, Tammy. You can go outside, hang out in the sun. If you guys don't know, I have a dog. Her name is Tammy. She's a pain. But, another story for another day. So, Harry, sorry that, Liverpool didn't win again. Don't worry, I'll bring you a box of tissues when we go back to school. But, which of these 2 pairs of factors can give me a 5? Very good. 2 and 7. So now, because 5 has to be positive, 7 goes there. That's the bigger number. 2 goes there. That's my answer. All right, so you guys can finish number 6. There is some classwork / homework, whatever you want to call it. On the next page, it says 7-5 practicing. Feel free to reach out. I didn't put that in my note key because obviously we didn't anticipate on being out for this long. But yet again, just reach out if you have questions on that. I suggest doing that. Other than that, check Schoology to see which web assignment we would like you to complete. And as always, Stay classy.